Welcome to the Content Podcast, Conversations with Silicon Valley's Creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates.
Hello, this is Joe Hyrkin.
Hey Joe, how you doing? This is Daniel. Today we talk with Joe Hyrkin. He's the CEO of Issuu, a digital publishing platform. So, it's been a while since we talked. It was in 2017. And
wow, long time. That feels like a long time ago.
It does feel like a long time ago. So that means you've been at Issuu for how long now?
7.5 years. It's the longest job I've ever had.
Oh, really? Wow. That means you must like it.
I do. I like what we're doing. I like our customers. I like the challenges.
Yeah, I feel like it seems like you do have a real passion for and see the value of independent and publishing to be out there in the world, free press. How did that how did that passion develop in you, do you think?
From a career perspective, I've always been in the content world, sort of this intersection of content technology and getting content distributed in front of people as they need it. In the 90s, I worked for the Economist Group and I helped run their China business. And, that was sort of at the intersection of free press and rising China and challenges. You can imagine getting the Economist to print and distributed in China, especially in the days when, there were plenty of articles that were negative about China. I think just in general, for me, I've always been somebody who has been at my core. I mean, even in high school and throughout my career, I've always wanted to be someone who speaks up for what seems to be right. Integrity has always mattered. And I think that has manifested over the course of my career in providing tools for people who have a voice, who want to be heard, who have something to say, to give them access, both to communicate their message and to the audience to hear it. At Issuu, we started as a company 13 years ago in Denmark, very much global in nature, with a focus on transforming the means of accessing content from being one that was very much paper dominated even 10, 15 years ago, to being one that was digital, both in terms of the creation capability and in terms of consumption. And it's not just about being digital or the transformation at a technology level. It's about really a radical expansion of the ability to connect that message. So we always talk at Issuu about connecting meaningful content. And it's not just about beautiful content, although the pages of your publication are always beautiful, but sometimes meaningful is about beautiful pages, but just as often meaningful is about content that doesn't look particularly nice when it's laid out on a page, but the information is super important between the creator and the consumer.
Yeah. Over the last 7 years with Issuu, what's some of the things that have kind of changed in the way that you've kind of have approached, like the trajectory of maybe what you first thought to what it's kind of moving to now?
I think there's the big shift, of course, has been mobile.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a shift for everybody in the content and technology world. And it's about leveraging the screen so that it's about leveraging the screen and the channels that are now accessible, again, so that more content can be created and consumed. And I think when Issuu started, we were very much about a really high quality experience of content on a desktop, high quality page flips, staying true to the layout, and facilitating enhancements of that content with video and links and a variety of things there. We still very much are focused on delivering that, and we've put a huge amount of our focus really on the mobile experience because, somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80% of content now is consumed on a phone. And our job is to help the creator. We want to make sure that the creators don't have to do native development for every screen and every channel within that screen, that they can focus on what they're great at, which is to create and then leverage Issue for the transformation of that content into the right formats and the right channels. I think the other big piece is the notion of digital has shifted radically. It used to be digital was about a website, and maybe you threw something onto a social site. And now the web is one of dozens
Right.
of channels. And so it's not enough just to have a website. In fact, it's limiting just to have a website. It's important to have your content available wherever that audience is,
Right.
whether that audience is on TikTok or LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest or on and on and on, or the dozens of channels that you and I haven't heard of necessarily, but the coolest people in the world are already using,
Yeah. Right.
right? And so
Yeah.
the exciting aspect there is that uh, the exciting aspect there is that creators now have access to the biggest audience in the world. There are billions of people now digitally connected, but it can get really complicated, really time consuming
Yeah.
and expensive to have to re-render your content or recreate it for each of those channels. So the the importance now is focus on creation and then get access to the tools. We try to be one of those that will enable you to get that content in front of people on the platform that makes most sense to them. That's a huge shift. That mindset of like, what is digital?
Yeah. Well, I even think for me too, even when I mean, my heart is in print, but I think
Yeah.
even when I started, when I even came on Issue, I was like, this is great. And then I was thinking in terms as, small independent publisher, like, how do we develop our own app? And I remember back in those days, Issue didn't really have a mobile unit yet. It was just basically web that you would view on your smartphone, and then transition
Yeah.
to the app, and then the transition of having subscriptions or even buying single issue and then having subscriptions. All those kind of things is, for me is like, oh, these are great. I think I'm slow in wanting to let go of print in a way,
Yeah.
and I don't think I have to, but I think what you guys are currently rolling out with you're doing with the visual story,
Hmm.
I'm really excited about that next kind of phase of how that's also linked to Facebook, and you can instantly put it up to Instagram story. I think, I mean, you probably wouldn't have envisioned that 7 years ago, right? Because that whole digital change and interface.
Yeah. 7 years, certainly when I came on board, mobile was absolutely gaining steam,
Yeah.
and there were people who were telling me, back then the world of content that was getting attention was BuzzFeed and
Yeah.
what I like to call the SPPs, the shallow publisher platforms. Um, and it was BuzzFeed and even small amounts of content on Twitter. And what's happened in the last 7 years is I don't think most people would have foreseen it, which is all of those small sort of lightweight publishing platforms or shallow publishing platforms in terms of content have all embraced longer form quality content. Twitter
Right.
doubled
Yeah.
its character set. Uh, Instagram, it's hard to imagine this, but remember this, Instagram went from
Yeah. It's just
an
photos.
image and not even
Yeah.
photos, an image to 10 images was the big innovation, right?
Yeah.
And then video. And that was only, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. It's pretty
Um,
quick.
BuzzFeed went from lists of 5 items to hiring investigative journalists that are winning Pulitzer prizes, and
Yeah.
the
It's
list
great.
goes on and on and on and on of how, at the end of the day, what matters around content is substance and depth that engages people's interests, and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
see it over and over and over again. So I don't think the argument is print or not print. I think the argument is quality or not quality, and quality is winning every
Yeah,
single time.
yeah. And then the medium is always just the tool to get, like you were saying, to connect the creators to the audience to read that information. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, coming back to your mentioning of like some of the innovations we've created, particularly around visual stories, um, what visual stories is all about, it's a part of something that we rolled out last year called the Issue Story Cloud. And the Issue Story Cloud is us bundling together the tools and services that we've made available so that our customers, the creators, the publishers, the marketers, can easily access the pieces that give them the best solution to get their content in front of where their audience is. And visual stories is about mobile optimizing your content in a way that the presentation of it is panel oriented, just like you see on an Instagram story, but it's not ephemeral like an Instagram story. It's optimized for mobile so that that content can be distributed through different channels, whether it's distributed through email or distributed as a story on Instagram or Snap or whatever it happens to be. And then within that visual story, you can then provide access to an even longer article or full-on publication. So it's about tying together the the fullness of the content that you have, but making it available in ways people
Yeah.
can easily access and consume it, particularly on their phone.
Yeah.
It's about access.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's the thing too, is that as I was seeing that, it was probably the first time that I really was thinking in terms of, you know, what can we do for our magazine, our small publication, in ways to really use digital. And I was even, that made me kind of thinking why I wanted to talk to you is like, oh, like, are you guys going to be moving, are you thinking of that expansion with the digital, that where even the desktop page turning view would become kind of less of your brand. I don't want to say, you know what I mean? Not as much of an emphasis, but really building out. So like the article, because you guys have the article view, you know, we could take one
Yep.
article, make it. And when I saw that, I was like, this is exactly what I always wanted for an app. Like, and then as I was seeing this, what you guys were doing with the visual stories and the articles, I was thinking, this could be what, you know, I don't have the dollars to build out, where I could upload my information. And so what, you know, I'm just kind of, so it's a long way to say like, what's going in the future, and do you even see that kind of the need for the page turn view? Is that really as important now, especially for a digital world?
So I think we will probably always have a high quality page turn experience available. Again, I think that the onus is on us, Issue, as the technology platform, as the provider, to make sure that your content is
Yeah,
accessible to your audience wherever your audience is and however they want to consume it. So
yeah,
I'm not going to be in a position. I don't want to be the sort of judge and arbiter of how content is consumed. You made a creation. That creation is valid and has thought behind it and has a vision behind it. My job and our job at Issue is to make sure that that experience is available to the consumers that you want. And so, uh, if if somebody is consuming it on a desktop and they want to have a paginated experience that also incorporates video content and
yeah,
links to additional information or links into your advertisers and ways to monetize that content more effectively for you,
yeah,
we're going to do that. And the truth is, increasingly, we are in a mobile world, and I think the big lesson for all of us is uh, it's not about mobile first; it's about mobile. You know, people are now creating on a phone. I mean, you think you start to look
yeah,
at things like one of the things I think that's exciting about TikTok. There's a lot of challenges around it, but one of the exciting things is um, it is, and a lot of what's happening on YouTube. It is a
yeah,
The whole thing happens on mobile. The creation happens on mobile. The distribution happens on mobile. The consumption happens on
yeah,
mobile,
yeah,
and that is going to increasingly be the ways in which creative content is made and interacted with. And so
yeah,
I don't think it's about uh, in the same way like when TV came along and then the internet came along, it's still radio.
right,
Radio,
yeah,
in fact, there's more radio available now than ever before, right? Sirius
Right.
satellite
Yeah.
and I mean, potentially Spotify is sort of like your personal radio station. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's not about it's not about replacement. It's about being responsive to what's happening, right? So we're responding to how people are
Yeah.
engaging, and I think it just adds more depth and more flavor to how people engage with that content. So
Yeah.
I do think, and it's one of the reasons why we're so focused on mobile is because it's hard. It's really hard
Yeah.
for a creator. I think it's hard for you to
Yeah.
take your magazine and say, okay, I'd like to make it available in all these
Yeah.
places, but it takes you, if you want to take your content and do something great for Instagram, it takes you a lot of
Yeah.
time. And then you have to start all over again and do it on Snap. And then you have to start all over again and do it for Pinterest. So we're just basically saying, look, we're gonna help you automate that process and turn it into the assets that make the most sense for you. And that's an area we're going to be spending a lot more time in. We're also going to be spending a lot more time in specific solutions for different categories and different markets.
What are those different markets? There's publishers, magazines like I'm doing. But then, yeah, what are some of those other markets that you're thinking can use the platform?
Yeah, so the largest set of our customers are businesses. So it's we're used more by marketers than of businesses than anyone else, and it's
Really?
it's folks like real estate agents who are creating brochures to sell and promote a house.
Okay. Yeah.
It's restaurants who are putting, again, now even more important than ever before, they're putting their menus in a high quality way online that include links and additional information. It's agencies who are creating content for their customers. It's catalogs and lookbooks and folks in the commerce world who are selling content and want to be able to, again, make it available in a high quality format and also make it available into a visual story. One of the things we also rolled out with the Issuu visual story product on our app is the ability to start from scratch, basically
Yeah.
create a story just from your own content, from your images or videos that you've taken, and you can then combine that with content from a publication or a brochure. So in your case, you could take, you know, 5 pages from your magazine, incorporate it with video that you shot while you were
Yeah.
on site somewhere, and 3 images and maybe a picture of you and the person you're interviewing out at dinner or something, sort of some informal stuff that you might not otherwise put in the pages of the magazine. You can now put that into a visual story and have that distributed on any of the channels that you want.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I have to say, what really quite like kind of blown away is when I popped into that, and then there was the option of actually uploading other assets, right?
exactly.
And I could even change the text because some of it has changed since we went to publication.
Yep.
Add addresses and do different types of things, which was
Right.
wonderful.
Right.
I mean, thank you for the platform.
Right. Right. No, I'm glad you're using it that way because that's how it's designed. And again, all this happens from the phone. It doesn't mean that there's still plenty of work that happens on the desktop, particularly in and around the issue content.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the kind of direction that we're going in. We are the platform that enables businesses to tell their story to the audience and customers that they need
Yeah.
to reach.
Yeah. I think in this current time, I think we need to bring up COVID-19, of course. So
Yeah.
let's start first from your platform, and then let's even talk about somewhat of Issuu as a company.
I would say one of the things that I'm finding most interesting is resiliency.
Oh yeah.
It's looking at where has resiliency been refined for me as a CEO, for each of the people in the company as employees, and for us as a business. And businesses go in cycles. They're super positive, and then there's challenges, and we go up and down all the time.
Sure.
And when we're at our best, actually also takes a tremendous amount of resiliency. When we're at our best and growing rapidly and evolving products and changing things, when we're doing those things, we're often doing things we've never done before.
Yeah.
And if we can recognize that we've actually exercised this muscle of doing things we've never done before, then in times of challenge, instead of getting down, or instead of getting overwhelmed by the challenge, we can look at it and say, oh, actually, we've got some experience in dealing with an environment or an ecosystem, um, we've never seen before. And I think it's like, how do we apply that resiliency to what's happening right now
Yeah.
in around the world? So for us as a company, some interesting things happen. We typically we have offices in Palo Alto, Copenhagen, and Berlin. Those are our three main
Yeah.
offices, and we
Yeah. You're pretty spread out
pretty
already,
spread out.
right? So,
But we're clustered. I mean, people come into the office to work,
yeah.
and we typically do a quarterly planning meeting for the next quarter or two, where we're looking at all the different things we're going to be building and working on, and prioritization, all that kind of stuff. And typically it's a group of people from all three of those offices that converge for a week in Copenhagen, and we get everything planned out. And it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of like, part of it is the in-person time and that sort of thing.
Sure.
And we planned our planning meeting to run the week of March 10th or March 13th, whatever that week
Yeah.
was,
Right
when
before.
the world began to shut
Yeah.
down. And we kind of waited until 5 days before the planning meeting just to sort of see, are we going to be able to go do this, or is it just going to be too chaotic and irresponsible? And it was obvious we had to change the plan, and so we did. No one flew, and we jumped up. We said, okay, we're going to do this whole thing over Zoom, and we completely changed the schedule so that it ran from 6 a.m. here to 2 p.m. And we had a little break in the middle so that people who were in Europe could have dinner with their families. And
Yeah.
we actually delivered meals to those families so that it wouldn't be too much of a burden, et cetera. So it was like we quickly innovated just in the moment around how we're just planning and building the product.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is there was now a set of of the leadership organization that had just spent a week on their own, because when we did it by Zoom, even though people were still working from the office that week, we had everybody be working from home when they were doing this planning meeting. So everybody was on their own, and it just so happened that the next week everyone goes into lockdown and has to work remotely from home, and we'd had some experience with doing that. So it's been so I think that sort of in the moment responding to what's happening has been a muscle we've exercised. I think it's been really hard for people who particularly have young and elementary school
Oh, yeah.
children, where they have essentially been told, you have to
Yeah.
now
Homeschool.
not you have
Yeah.
to learn how to. And that's not just homeschooling. It's not just like flipping on a Zoom. You have to now become a homeschool teacher. It's
Yeah.
really hard, right?
Yeah.
And you have your day job, and so I think there's a lot of guilt and stress
Yeah.
associated with all that. So we've tried to be as flexible as we can um, with the team there. In
Yeah.
terms of our business, we're seeing we're one of these companies that is designed to be able to be effective in this
Yeah.
environment. We're finding there's been this trend over the last couple of years, in particular, of people moving more of their content into a digital format and
Yeah.
leveraging Issuu for doing that. That's just accelerated, where we're seeing more and more. There's a great example. There's a hospital that has a brochure, a pamphlet, sort of 20-page pamphlet for caregivers and families of people who are in the hospital. It has to be a respiratory hospital, and they always give out that pamphlet to their patients and to their families. And because of COVID,
Yeah.
they clearly couldn't do that. So they were looking for a solution. They found Issuu, and they uploaded that brochure, the pamphlet, and now send out an email to their patients and their patients' families so they get access to the same information. And in fact, they've
Yeah.
enhanced it with different things, etc.
Yeah.
So
Which makes sense if you think if we're, if you touch something and you pass it to somebody and it's hours before that virus, could still be right. So then you would not want to have paper
exactly.
passed around. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Right. We've seen a number of customers actually write press releases. We didn't know they were doing it. They did it on their own. Write press releases saying our material, our content, our publication is still going to be available. We're still working.
Yeah.
We're just going to be making it available through Issuu.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of those kinds of announcements because, again, there's even more urgency now for content creators to get their content in front of their audience.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just can't do it the way they had been. We had someone from Italy, Northern Italy, actually,
Oh, yeah.
who wrote into us and said, we can't, we physically can't go to our printer, but we have all of our content. We want to start using you to go do that. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
one of the other things we did is we opened up some of our tools to have more access. So we used to, for the digital sales product, we used to charge a 30% revenue share. We got rid of that 30%, so our publishers can keep that, or they can give it to some charity or
Yeah.
something along those
And also
lines.
saw you waived some of the fees for a couple months too, right? For using the
We did,
platform.
yeah.
Yeah,
We
which
waive
is
fees
great.
for we waive fees for that and for Collaborate.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
cool.
So we're trying to do our part, and of course also um, continue to grow through it. We also, the other thing about us, and I think for all businesses to be thinking about, is we've been profitable as a business. Lots of tech startups are just about raising money and spending that money
Yeah.
wildly.
Yeah.
We've been funded by venture capital, but we've also taken the responsibility to make sure that we are a profitable business, because profitability communicates. It's sort of a proxy for, we're going to be around. We're creating a legacy. We have millions of customers that rely on us, and we need to make sure that we're here for them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're not profitable, if you're kind of one of those fly-by-night companies that just raises a whole bunch of money, then your customers have to go scramble to go figure out someone else to rely on, and it creates a lot of stress and chaos.
Yeah.
And so I take that responsibility pretty seriously. So what it's meant is, in this time frame, we are not distracted by having to go figure out how to get profitable. We have a
Yeah.
business model that is that's sustainable along those lines, and I think that's something to figure out for a business too.
Yeah, I think it's just like a lot of the retail stores who already had an online presence, right? It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't as hard of a hit to shut down their brick and mortar, right? And you guys were really in a
Right.
good position. I mean, you're providing the digital platform, and so to move even your teams that are already across the world, you still can continue, which is great.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard. It
Sure.
is harder to work this way,
Yeah.
but again, like we can either get overwhelmed by how challenging it is, or we can say, oh, actually, it's a different form of innovation. Let's go figure
Yeah.
out how to deal with this.
Yeah. Yeah. Then what about you? Like even personally, what's in the last? I guess it's like 8 weeks now,
Yeah,
with the shut in. What have you kind of been doing to kind of like take care of yourself?
yeah. I spend way more time obsessing over the number of steps I'm taking every day. Like I feel,
Yeah. Yeah.
my wife and kids and I are like, how many
Right.
steps did you
Yeah.
get in today? Um, and so what I've been trying to do personally is take as many of my meetings while I'm
Oh.
walking as possible. So I'm walking around the
Yeah.
neighborhood a lot, and I'm kind of mixing that up. Some phone calls. I'm even doing some Zoom
While walking.
videos
Oh. Yeah.
walking, because I'm like, everybody's walking. Like what people have these different
Yeah.
backgrounds
Yeah.
on Zoom these days. So my background happens to be the trees
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
walking by. So I'm trying to do as many meetings as I can walking. I've adjusted my schedule a lot, because we have so many of the
Yeah.
teams in Europe and everybody's working from home. Normally I'm up pretty early anyway, but I've been getting up a lot earlier just to be available. I've been doing in Palo Alto early morning office hours, where I just open up the Zoom instance and people
Yeah.
can come ask questions either about the business or about what's happening in the ecosystem, how we're going to handle this. I've been through, this is my fourth downturn, I guess. I was in the Asia downturn in the late
Yeah.
90s, and the two .com crashes
Yeah.
here. So this is
Yeah.
different and all of that. But there's some stuff I think that we can borrow and learn from those experiences. So I've made sure that I'm even more available. Normally I fly over to Europe every 6 to 8 weeks or something like that. Can't
Yeah.
do that right now, so I'm trying to be more
Yeah.
available there. Um, we've we've increased company meetings. Instead of once a month, we're now doing one longer one and one shorter one every 2 weeks. So we're just working on making sure we're connecting, um, and the other thing I'm reminding everybody is, like, there's everybody that we in the company and all of our customers and everyone we're interacting with has a higher level of
Yeah.
stress right now, and just be really mindful of that, because uh, we don't know who's got this, or we don't know what's happening with their families. We have people. We're a very
Yeah.
global business, and we have people from all over the world, and so they have family members scattered around the world. We have somebody in our team who has family members stuck in another country
Yeah.
and they
That's
can't get
hard. Yeah.
out because there's no travel. So there's just a lot of added stress. And so I think one of the silver linings of all of this is it's going to, this has been going on long enough now where there's going to be a reinforcing of a mindfulness of the humanity that we all have. It's very
Yeah.
easy normally to get stuck in, I work with these people and we have meetings and this is our
Yeah.
structure. Uh, we're getting a lens into people's
Yeah.
living
Yeah.
rooms now, and we're seeing people's kids on their laps, and we're hearing about their families in ways we haven't before, and who's worried about being sick, and who has a family member that is more susceptible. And, like, there's a level of care, I think, that is accessible
Yeah.
during this time that is that's actually quite promising. And I hope that it's one of the things. I hope that there are some things uh, that we still engage with when everything's back to normal, whatever that means. And
Yeah. I was going to ask you, are there things that you're seeing that's coming that are bubbling up out of this time that you are seeing like, this is really a different, but even kind of slightly better way of doing it that you would continue to implement as things get unsheltered?
yeah, I mean, I think certainly the level of we have over communicated, and I think it's been really good. I've done more communicating about the business and where we are, why we're different from other
Hmm.
businesses, what our future looks like. A lot of communication. So I think that has been good. I think we will. I think we've learned how to do video conferencing better. We're using different tools as
Yeah.
well. I still think we will be an in-office company primarily, but I think we will get more comfortable with flexibility. I think we will learn how to check in with each other as human beings much
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
and that, I think, will make for richer companies and richer organizations. I think typically businesses, we're one dimensional often. Like, this person has this role to do this thing, and we're learning more about each other. And I think that's better. And we'll do more of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
And even hopefully, kind of like the absence makes the heart grow fonder type of thing. We're coming back into that proximity, physical proximity. Maybe some of those, there'll be some richer kind of relationships that are
Yeah,
built out of that.
yeah, yeah. And I think there's also just a sense of, like, camaraderie. There's a,
Yeah.
there's a sense of camaraderie. We are going through something.
Yeah.
This is
It's
unique.
a
None of us
shared
none of us have ever
experience. Yeah.
none of us have ever done this before.
Yeah.
So there's an interestingness to it.
So I want to ask you, just as since you kind of brought it up, I know that you've been involved in a lot of different businesses and innovation, Silicon Valley and VCs and all that. And you mentioned just about the economic downturns. I mean, since this one is so different, what is your kind of prediction when things start to open up?
I think that there's a few different things that are going to happen. I don't think we can divorce the timeline from politics.
Hmm.
I think that there's going to be the opening up of different states and different locales within states, and the relationship between the states and the federal government, all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to have a big impact. And I think
Yeah.
because of that, this will be more chaotic than it needs to be. There's lack of clarity. I mean, even just in California, there's lack of clarity. Like, um, there's different rules for different counties and all that kind of
Sure.
stuff. And so um, So I think there is a chance, and my hope is that we will learn from this shared humanity that we've all been going through over the last 2 months to like rise above that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure that will all how they'll all end up, but I do think the next 6 months of how this plays out will have political overtones throughout
Yeah.
everything that we're doing. So I think that's one piece. I think
Hmm.
economically, um, I listened actually to watched Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting presentation over the weekend, and he gave this wonderful. It was like an hour long history lesson of how throughout the history of the United States there have been catastrophic challenges that seemed
Yeah.
unbearable to
Yeah.
overcome, from the founding of the nation to the Civil War to the stock market crash to on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And every time we have figured out ways to leverage creativity to move things forward. And so I'm generally I generally share that view. I think there will be a lot of creativity that moves things forward. I think there will be a lot of carnage through this. I mean, I am super concerned about small businesses in particular, and
Yeah. Yeah.
how they will have to evolve and figure out new ways of working and developing. And I think that's going to take longer than we expect. So I think the economy will come back in drips and drabs more so than like a V-shaped recovery. I think
Sure.
it's going to
Yeah.
be. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a big piece of this is going to be how are schools going to how do schools respond, and is there a place for the kids so that those who need to work can start focusing on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So then, and how are you doing? I know that you're a baseball fan. Do you, I mean, are
Yeah,
you, do you, I mean, are you every summer, every season, are you watching like, a lot of games and stuff like that? Is it taking a toll on you in that way?
it takes a big toll on me. Except my family and I. One thing we did. I have two boys, 16 and 20, and my wife and I and the two boys, we had a wiffle ball tournament, backyard
Oh,
wiffle ball tournament.
oh, that's fun. Yeah,
It
that's
was them
fun.
against my wife and I. They won. Um, we my we still play a lot of catch, and we do a lot of stuff in the backyard,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
related to baseball, and we watch. We certainly have found ourselves watching old games and things
Yeah,
like that.
the
But
retro games. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I miss baseball. I miss being out there. I miss watching games. I miss the uh, I miss sort of the strategy of the games, and I hope that comes back. They're talking about launching the season at some point in July, so hopefully
yeah,
there'll be something along those lines to watch. But I will say, one of the things that I think is interesting talking about coming back, and it's related to baseball, um, is I think there are two big things that have been established through this whole COVID-19 world that we're living in. Um, the the first is I think we can put the argument to rest that people don't want to pay for content. There has only been an increase of content that people are quality content that people are paying for.
sure.
There's been an
Yeah,
increase in streaming. Quibi launched in the midst of all of this, and Disney Plus, and
yeah,
Hulu's new streaming service, and HBO, and on and on and on and on and on. And
yeah,
and each one of them are charging for quality content. And we saw this begin to happen. In the early days of the internet,
yeah,
there were arguments about whether music should all be free, and we put that to rest. And people pay for music now. People are paying for video content, and I believe that argument will start to play onto other kinds of content as well. And we're starting to see one of the great things about sports and baseball is we're starting to see professional baseball players, they're playing esports now, and there's like new contests coming up. And I think instead of just watching a baseball game, we're getting a lens into athletes' lives. And I think, consumers will be willing to pay for that. And I think there are analogies across the board that will give birth to new kinds of businesses and new kinds of formats where the it's not just about the final product of stuff, but
yeah,
there'll be an opportunity to start to create content around the creation. And I think that's very exciting. And I think the other big piece that's happened in all of this is that I don't think is going to go away is an increase in people creating hobbies and new areas of enthusiasm and interest and areas they're excited about. And there will be this increased need for people to get access to content related to that. We're seeing it happen now, and I think when you develop a hobby, typically you develop it for longer than that period that kind of initially inspired it. So those are areas that I think if you're looking for new businesses or new business ideas, those are areas that I think will be there'll be real growth. I think it's going to be one of the if we look back 5 years, there's going to be this whole new sort of flourishing of new kinds of creative content and new businesses around creative content that'll sort of harken back to those 2 points.
On Issuu on the platform, what's some of your kind of favorite material that you kind of take in?
One of the things you can do on Issuu is create stacks of content. So you can bundle together the publications that you're most interested in. And one of the things we've been doing is creating stacks of content related to COVID-19 information. And we've got everything from the WHO and other UN documents to local proclamations and local information related to what's happening for COVID all over the place.
So for the stack of the COVID publications, where could somebody find that?
It's a stack that I follow, and you can go into Issuu and search COVID-19 and stacks, and you'll be able to see it. It's under the Issuu. Issuu has our own account on Issuu itself, and it's available there.
Yeah, that's cool. Good. Well, thank you very much for the work that you guys are doing for providing the platform. It means so much to me, and I know also for so many other publishers. Thank you for your time, and look forward to talking to you, maybe even seeing you in person sometime after the shelter. And thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me with you.
Yeah. Talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Check out Issuu at issuu.com. In addition to publishing Content Magazine, SV Creates also provides tools and resources for artists and arts organizations. From time to time, we'll be checking in with Alyssa to find out what's going on. Hey, Alyssa, how you doing?
Hey, Daniel. I wanted to let you know about an upcoming 2-part webinar we have on leading others through change. It's May 21st and May 28th. We're doing it in partnership with Center for Excellence in Nonprofits. And you can find more information and links to register on our website at svcreates.org.
Thanks, Alyssa.
You're welcome. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, bye. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Please follow us on social media at ContentMag and subscribe by going to our website, content-magazine.com. This episode's music is Muddy Water from Sakura's 2020 release, Coming Home Soon. You can find Sakura on Spotify.